We welcome you, our new HSS community. We've been working so hard toward this. So thank you, Dr. Prather. I know that you're on. I don't know if you're going to be on tonight, so I won't bug you too much. And the whole HSS crew for making this happen. My name is Caryn Dugan. I'm coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. I adopted a plant-based, just real quick, I adopted a plant-based diet in 2008 because my dad died. Well, my dad died of cancer in 2008, and then 10 weeks after he passed away, I was diagnosed. So through a lot of different ways, I found a plant-based diet, and I really enjoy it. I didn't think that I would. It really scared me. I'm sitting here in the middle of the country. We're pretty conservative here, and all the latest trends and all kinds of things always come here last. So we were late to get on the whole vegan plant-based kick. Now, real quick, before we get too deep into all of this stuff, to answer the question between vegan and plant-based, just because if somebody is following a vegan diet, let's say, that doesn't mean that that is particularly a healthy choice. It just means they're choosing not to eat animals. Totally fine. I like to say, this is my own personal definition, a plant-based diet is, yes, a plant predominant diet, but it's a healthier version of a vegan diet. So I will not be cooking with any animal products. I am not pushing anyone to do what I'm doing. I have never asked my friends or my family members to become vegan or plant-based. That is, you're on your own journey. So every once in a while, an animal product does make its way onto my plate, whether it be through broth or I'm taking a little bite of whatever my husband's eating, something like that. This is just information about how nutrient dense, anti-inflammatory, health promoting plant-based foods are. And I like to cook with whole plant-based foods. You won't see me use overly processed foods. There are going to be some packaged foods because we live in a modern society and that's just the way it is, right? So I will do my best to communicate with you what I'm doing through all kinds of different foods. And I will make this as approachable, I promise, and accessible as possible for you. Now, my partner in crime here is Dr. Jim Loomis, and he's a practicing physician in Washington, D.C. He lived here in St. Louis for about 35 years, and I'll let him kind of give you his background. So that's kind of an overview. Most people do adopt a healthier, or at least they change their diet because they do have some kind of health scare. Again, mine was because I lost my dad and then I had cancer. So I went through many certifications, lots of education to get where I am today. And I am a certified health and wellness coach through Well Coaches. I went through the Ruby School of Cooking, where I earned my plant-based professional certificate. So that made me a plant-based chef, and a whole lot of other things that I won't bore you about. Just trying to give you a little bit of street cred. In 2019, yes, 2019, I opened up the nation's first and only fully plant-based nutrition and culinary education center, the Center for Plant-Based Living. So that's what you see on my apron. That's what you'll see on my chef's coat whenever you see that around. That's what you see on the front cover of your, I have lots of notes on here, but the front cover of your PDF. Opened that 7 months before COVID. Yay. You don't want me buying your lottery ticket. Then we made it through COVID. We actually made it a long way through COVID. And then something happened. Zoom happened. Zoom really picked up. I started a membership through the Center for Plant-Based Living. And I realized, hey, we can spread the word a lot further if we go Zoom. So that started to really take off. The membership started to really take off. And then Jim and I also have a project called the Doc and Chef, and that really started to take off. I had to pick a lane because I was doing nothing well, and I need to do a couple of things really well. So I closed the Center for Plant-Based Living, just the brick and mortar, but everything still exists online. So if you go to that website, well, it's on your PDF, you'll find so many recipes, so many resources. We try to give you like 98% of the information all for free because it's because we're supposed to, because it's just the right thing to do. So I hope you enjoy going through the website whenever you have a choice, whenever you have a chance. But in the meantime, we want to get started. Jim will chime in with nutritional facts and all kinds of things during the class. Please, please, please. Listen, I'm not a fancy person. Can you tell? You don't need to wave your hand, but if you'd rather just put something in the chat, Jim is going to take care of that. And we're happy to answer any questions that you have tonight. Before we get started, let's get Jim's intro out of the way. Jim, will you please chime in?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Dr. Jim Loomis, and I'm a internal medicine physician, but also board certified in lifestyle medicine. As Caryn said, I lived many years in St. Louis. Actually got introduced to HSS because I was one of the team physicians for the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Rams, and the head team doctor had trained at HSS, and that's how I got to know Dr. Prather as well. I went plant-based 2000, as Caryn said. I didn't learn anything about plant-based diets, and as a physician, I didn't learn anything about healthy eating or the importance of lifestyle in my training. And 2010, 2011, I became a patient because I thought eating healthy was low-fat dairy and lean meat and fruits and vegetables and not too much ice cream because everything in moderation, and found out, both fortunately and unfortunately, that you can't outrun a mediocre diet. And I tore my meniscus playing with my dog, and I had to wait a few months to get surgery, gained a ton of weight. And then I didn't do the rehab because doctors are terrible patients. And I became a patient. I went into atrial fibrillation because I turned out I had undiagnosed sleep apnea, and my cholesterol's through the roof, and I had borderline diabetes, borderline blood pressure. I essentially became the normal patient I was seeing every single day in my internal medicine practice. But I didn't really know how. I mean, all I knew how to do was prescribe, metformin and blood pressure pills. And one day stumbled across a documentary called Forks Over Knives about using plant-based food as medicine, plant-based foods as medicine. Looked up some of the research, even in 2011, was blown away by the breadth and the depth of the research on the importance of a plant-predominant diet on the health benefits. And literally overnight, transitioned to plant-based diet. 4 or 5 months later, I'd lost 50 pounds. Every single one of my medical conditions resolved. My sleep apnea went away. When that went away, the AFib went away, and my cholesterol dropped 100 points, and I got off the cholesterol medicine, and the prediabetes went away, and the borderline blood pressure went away. And kind of once you have that knowledge as a physician about the power of plants and the power of lifestyle, you can't unhave it. And so, so I completely kind of flipped my practice upside down, and I practice internal medicine. I'm evidence-based. I write prescriptions for those medications, but everyone needs to understand that what we call healthcare today is really not healthcare. It's sick care. And what I learned in med school was really a giant game of whack-a-mole. We pop, pops your blood pressure, we whack it down with some pills, and here comes your cholesterol, here comes your sugars. And, then we start whacking up body parts. And that is not healthcare. That is sick care. And in this current system we have, we can add years to your life as a patient, but we take away life from your years, right? We allow you to accumulate the disability that comes with sedentary lifestyle and obesity and drugs and, on and on and on. And everyone needs to understand there's a different path you can take where you can add years to your life and sustain life in your years. And the only way you're going to do that is healthy eating, sleep, stress management, physical activity. It's really, again, the pillars of lifestyle medicine. So, what Caryn does such a great job is taking that nutrition piece and really making it accessible. And I'm here to kind of help talk about. She's going to talk about the how, but what I'm here to talk about is the why. So why is it that you need eat get your protein from beans versus, ground beef or whatever? And again, I'm here to answer any questions you might have. But it's a passion of mine, and Caryn and I've been working together for a long time and became business partners in the Docking Chef a year or so ago. And as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about all this stuff. So I'll be quiet now. Caryn's giving me the side eye. I tend to talk a lot, so I'll be quiet now, but that's my story.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep.
All right, so we are here essentially, well, really to just help you add more plants to your plate. That is truly it, all wrapped up into a bow. So let's get started. tonight, let's go through your menu. It's a pretty short one tonight because we're also going to talk about label rating. Tonight, I'm going to start with a grillable black bean steak burger. So super easy. You're not even going to believe it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about label rating while those burgers are setting up, cooking and then setting up, and I'll explain that more. And then we're going to get to, and this is going to be pretty quick, a delicious kale salad. So I'll tell you what, before I started adding copious amounts of plants to my plate, I thought kale was just a little garnish that came on the side of my scrambled eggs in the morning, which that was part of it. I didn't even think about eating it. It was tough, fibrous, woody. I'm really selling it, right? But I'll tell you what, I will teach you how to dress kale in such a way that it will be tender, yummy, delicious. It'll almost melt in your mouth and everyone will love it, including you. So here we go. First things first. We're going to start off with the black bean burger, but we're going to saute an onion first. Now, this is not how you hold a knife. Let me get over here so you can see this, right? How many hold your knife like this, right? Nope, that's not how you do it. This is not how you hold a knife. I see a lot of people with their index fingers right there on the top of that big blade. Now, I cut a lot of squash, especially now in the fall and the winter. And there is no way that this index finger is going to be strong enough to get through those big rinds and those squashes, right? No. What you want to do is take your chef's knife, pinch the bottom of the blade, and wrap your hand around that handle, the top of that handle. And now you own that knife. I would encourage you to do this in your own home. And it might feel a little weird if you've never done it before, but I would do it for about a week or so and just see how you like it, okay? Now, this is how I like to cut an onion so that I'm not cutting and cutting and cutting and crying and crying and crying. So take an onion, doesn't matter what kind, and you're going to cut off one of the ends, doesn't matter which one. Cut off this one. All right, so now you have a flat surface, a lot more stable. And then we're going to take off some of this outer paper. And I'm going to cut down the middle of that onion, okay? And we're going to take off just the outermost paper or skin, whatever you want to call it. I think, obviously that really outer layer is like paper. So I end up calling it paper. And of course, when people are watching, it never comes off all at once. There we go. I'm going to take both of these. Oh, and I should have asked, I'm very sorry. Is there anyone cooking with me tonight? Please just shout out. Nobody? Not this time? Next time, perhaps. Okay. Now.
I think Anne is.
Yeah, Karen, I was going to say Anne is.
Anne is. They're waving at us. They look like the Esselson sisters, by the way.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, if you guys, Anne, if you ever want to come on camera or at least just unmute yourself or chime in, and you need some help, just don't be scared. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so now we have these two sides or these two halves of our onion, right? We're going to take that newly cut surface and put that down on the cutting board. Now, I'm not going to cut all the way up to the end of the onion, but I am going to cut all the way down to the cutting board, and I'll show you why in just a second. We're going to get in there once or twice, whatever you're comfortable with. Really watch those fingers, right? And then finally, perpendicular to that last chop, or that last slice, I should say. And now you have some pretty uniform cut onions. Now, the only reason I didn't cut all the way up to the top is just so I can pick this one piece up and compost it or throw it away or do whatever. Pretty simple. We're going to do the same thing right here. Get in there. And now we have our onion. Now that is the way I like to cut an onion. If you have a way that you really like, then go for it. All right, let's saute this up. I've got my pan right here, ready to go. Okay, we're gonna get our pan nice and hot. This is an induction burner, so it shouldn't take very long at all. Has anybody made their own black bean burgers before, or their own veg burgers or bean burgers or whatever you want to call them?
I have a question. Why are you sauteing with no oil? Like, what about healthy oil?
Oh, you are really, really on it, aren't you? That was
I was
the
saying, did
next
you-
thing that we were going to talk about.
Right. As I said, did you plant that question, Caryn? Because
Yeah,
I know that's what's next.
How timely is that? I am not cooking with any, and this is actually something Jim and I will talk about. And it's a big part of the way we eat. We don't add any oils because for a number of reasons, but just to give you some numbers first, all oil, doesn't matter what kind it is, whether it's canola oil, sesame seed oil, olive oil, coconut oil, motor oil, I don't care what it is, every tablespoon is 120 calories, 14 grams of fat, 100% fat, 0 fiber, all oil, period. So if you are coating your pan with oil before you start to saute, you have just added, do the math, 400, 500, 600 calories before you've even added any food at all. So that's a lot of oil that you could be taking in. Think about a salad dressing. Any salad dressing recipe that you look up, I should say not any, most salad dressings that you find online in books, whatever, or that you buy in the market or the grocery store, most are going to start with usually olive oil. And they're usually, at least recipes, are going to start with anywhere between 1/3, pardon me, and 1/2 cup of oil. Again, math, that's a lot of fat and calories. So if you're really trying to be super mindful and clean, I guess, and make a big salad for one of your meals and put in a lot of work, right? Like really be thoughtful about it, really mindful about it. But then you add in all of this fat, all these calories that you don't really think about, because I didn't think about that either when I first started eating this way. I didn't think, you just use oil because that's just part of the sauteing process. That's a part of the roasting process if you're roasting vegetables, right? Oil is everywhere if you think about it. And that really, really adds up. So I have found that by doing a dry saute, which is what I'm going to do here, sometimes I call it a skinny saute, a dry saute, a oil-free saute, interchangeable. I have found that by not using oil, the flavor really comes through, because what are you doing with oil? We're coating the pan, we're creating a buffer between the pan and the food. So your food can slip around on the pan, right? Well, transfer that also to your taste buds. When you're eating that food, the salad dressings, the sauces, the oil from the pan in your sautés, the roasted vegetables, whatever, you're eating that oil and you're creating a buffer between your taste buds and the food. So if you think that you can really taste the food, try pulling the oil away and it will be like a flavor bomb. It's so great. And I'm going to show you right now how I like to do a dry saute.
Caryn, can I comment real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a question that comes up all the time. And when we talk about healthy oils, a lot of the studies around oil, particularly like olive oil, the health benefits really seem to be a substitution effect. And what I mean by that is, if you compare people that are eating butter and lard to people that are eating olive oil, guess what? The risk for heart disease come down. But there's been 2 recent studies that looked at whole food plant-based diet or Mediterranean diets with and then without, comparing with and without olive oil, and showed that the people who cut back on oil or got rid of the oil actually had a further decrease in cardiovascular risk. Their LDL bad cholesterol went down further, and they actually lost more weight. Because as Caryn said, a tablespoon of olive oil is less, is 125 calories. And one thing when I talk to patients about is, we should think about calories like we think about money, right? So if you've got extra money to invest in your health, I mean, if you got extra money to invest in your financial future, you're looking for a positive return on investment. Well, that's how we should think about calories. So if you've got 100 calories to invest in your health today, and you can invest it in olive oil or boneless, skinless chicken breast or greens or baki, what does the nutritional return on each of those look like? Well, as Caryn already said, 100 calories of olive oil, of any oil, is just fat, right? There's no fiber, there's no cancer-fighting phytonutrients, there's no antioxidants, it's not anti-inflammatory. 100 calories, and how much space does it take up in your stomach? Not very much. What about 100 calories of chicken breast? Same thing. It's an ounce. How full are you going to be from that? And what do you get back from that besides fat and protein? Nothing, right? There's no fiber, there's no cancer-fighting phytonutrients, there's no antioxidants. What about 100 calories of beans or broccoli? That's like 12, 14 ounces. So you're going to be full. It's packed with antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, fiber, protein. So that's why when I counsel patients in my own personal life, at home especially, I don't cook with oil, and I typically recommend my patients be careful with it. And if you want to put a little spritz of oil in there, I mean, is that going to kill you? No. But especially patients that are trying to lose weight, or if you've got insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, where you really need to watch your fat, I think it's very important. So I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually, it's a really good point. And sometimes I don't say that. So thanks for saying that, Jim. It's not so much about, not ever using oil again. It's really just about, again, being mindful about it. So if you want to try the dry saute, go ahead. If you're a little wary about it, I totally understand that. Then just remember those numbers, right? And maybe just use 1 tablespoon of oil for like a large pan like this, instead of like trying to go, right? But you know what? I mean, I used to do that, present company included. Oil was everywhere. Now I want to just stop. Oh, go ahead. What's up?
No, there's a question about cooking spray. Well, that's an interesting question. So I don't know if you ever look closely at cooking spray, and if you look at the nutritional information, when you read the label on cooking spray, it says something like, so some of them will say, like Pan will say 0 calories. Now, how in the world could a spray that's 100% fat not have any calories? Well, if you also look at the dose of cooking spray, it's a 1/10 of a second spray or something like that, right? It's something that's not humanly possible to coordinate between your finger and your eyes, right? And so, when we do cooking spray, what do? It's just like putting olive oil in. We spray, we spray, and we spray. So it's the same issue. Now, again, is a little cooking spray ever then going to help you? Is going to hurt you? No. Now, the other thing about oils, by the way, to be cognizant of is, from a health standpoint, different kinds of oils have different what are called smoke points. And if you heat an oil above its smoke point, it'll transform the mono and polyunsaturated fats into trans fats, which are the worst fats you can get as far as like heart disease. So olive oil, for example, has a pretty low smoke point. So you don't want to cook it you don't want to fry stuff in it. You don't want to cook at a very high temperature. Avocado oil has a much higher smoke point. Peanut oil has a higher smoke point. So if you elect to use oils, be sure that you're using an oil that's appropriate to the temperature that you're cooking at. Although recognize you just don't need to use the oils. They're just not necessary, but just be cognizant of that.
Okay, so we have gotten to a point here. I want to show this to you guys. I just put the onions straight on a hot pan. And you can see I don't know if you've been able to watch, but I've been keeping them going. And once you add heat to plants, they start to glisten because the water starts coming out. Now, what you want to do here is see this browning on the bottom of the floor of our pan here. Don't worry about that. You're not in trouble. It's not starting. We can call it a pre-burn, but I'd rather call it fond, F-O-N-D, which is the culinary term for that. That's that yummy caramelization that we want to get into our food. So what do? You take a little bit of vegetable broth or water, just a tablespoon or so. And look, we cleaned our pan. And see that fond on the bottom of the pan? It's now coming up. and being folded into our food, and you can see it. You can see it in the onions because they're becoming even more brown. It's picking up that, as I said, that yummy caramelization, and it is creating so much flavor in our food. It's going to be really, really noticeable. So we haven't added any salt, though I will in just a second. You don't have to. And we haven't added any oil. And look, they're nice brown, becoming golden. This was a white onion. You can use yellow, doesn't matter. And oh, it just smells so delicious in here. And all you need to do, really the secret is, guys, just to stay on top of your food. That's all it is. Please don't walk away from it, because water, as we all know, will evaporate and it'll burn pretty quickly. So you want to stay on top of it. This is just a really, really fantastic exercise in mindful cooking. And it doesn't take long, right? This happened in the last, what, 3-4 minutes? Okay. and
So
I'm
Caryn,
gonna-
2 questions real quick from
Yeah.
the chat. What type of frying pan is best for dry sauteing or frying? And are you sauteing on medium or high heat? Those are the 2 questions.
Okay, so the pan, it does not matter. I promise you. I have done this. This is a nonstick pan, but this is a 6 or 7-year-old pan. And I used to use it in my cooking school. So it got a lot of wear and tear. So it's not really quite so nonstick anymore. However, pull the heat down. I have also cooked, I've also done a dry saute in cast iron. So really, truly, it does not matter what type, any cookware, does not matter. I had this on high. I've pulled it down to a medium high right now. So this was at a 20, which is the highest. I'm now at a 17. I'm going to pull it down to a 15. So just play around with it. Okay, I think we are probably good to go. Now, one thing with this, people often ask, well, wait, they're turning golden and you're getting that stuff off the bottom of the pan and you're talking about caramelization. Can you really caramelize onions? Yes, you can. Oh, steam. Yes, you can. All you need to do is keep doing this. Just add a little bit of water, a tablespoon or so at a time, and get all that fond that will kind of keep creating, it'll keep going it'll keep creating fond probably for the next couple of minutes, but you'll get to a point where the onions just will not have any more liquid in them and they'll become very dry. That is when, let's just pretend that that's what's happening now. The onions are looking at you like, seriously, sister, we got nothing left in us, right? What you want to do at that point is hit it with a little bit of salt, not too much. And then all of a sudden, the onions will start to glisten all over again, giving you up every single teeny tiny little atom of water. And what is happening then is this salt is taking out every single little teeny tiny bit of water, condensing the sugars and making these onions super, super sweet. So yes, you can caramelize onions without any oil and without adding any sugar, brown sugar, whatever people sometimes do. So just a little tip if you want to do that. And I'm going to get this little bit of fond right here because I don't want that to go to waste. Now, the reason we call it a dry saute, yes, it's oil free, but it's also not a ton of water. We're not steaming or boiling our onions. We're just adding enough to get the fond up off the bottom of the floor of that pan. And then it evaporates. So they're still cooking the whole time. And really, again, I know I keep saying it, but those sugars keep condensing and really creating a beautiful, beautiful flavor for whatever you're using your onions for. So tonight we're using for a burger. So let's get started on that. I'm going to put all of our onions right here on this plate, let them cool down a little bit so that we can wrap them in the rest of the mixture. Okay, it's down here. And I'm going to get rid of this thing for just a second because we're going to use it again. Now, Jim or somebody was mentioning avocado or just spray oil, and I wanted to mention that I do have this avocado spray from Trader Joe's. And Jim, yeah, you were right. A serving size is 1/3 second spray for 0 calories, 0 fat, sodium, carbs, and protein, which is on there. And that
Right.
is
I mean,
0, 0,
it
0.
does, yeah, because the USDA, they'll allow people to label that because if it's below a certain amount, they can call it 0. But again, I challenge anyone to spray that for 1/3 of a second. I don't, I don't,
No, you can't,
I don't think it's
you can't even
possible.
sneeze for 1/3 of a second.
Right.
Yeah, so and I have that for grilling. Sometimes I'll do it on the grill for more than 1/3 of a second, but I bought high heat avocado oil for that high smoke point. Okay, burger time, baby. We've got a can, and I'm not doing the whole recipe right now just because it's just me eating tonight, and why make so many? But this is actually a really great batch cook. So when you are making burgers, I suggest you make, depending on the size of your family or if you're making it for friends or whatever, it's I would recommend making many so that you can freeze them as well. Okay, so we have right here our black beans. This is 1 can, 14 ounces. This is just a normal can of beans. I have rinsed them or drained them and rinsed them. Then we're going to add, okay, so let's talk about, I don't mean to like go back and forth too much, but let's talk about these burgers for a minute. Let's go through the ingredients, and then I'll put them in here and we'll talk a little bit more about them as well. We have the beans here. Now, a big thing about these burgers, you want to make sure you have a lot of binders, okay? And a binder, if you want to go probably 2 or 3 pages forward in your packet, you'll see a yellow image. And what we want to make sure you do is add binder. So binder is going to be oats, things like oats, beans, potatoes, ground flaxseed. That doesn't mean you need to have all of those things, but having at least 2 or 3 in those burgers is what you want, because you want the burgers to stick together, right? Of course. You also want to refrigerate your mixture if you can. If you can't, it's not the end of the world, but I do have found that it really makes a difference in keeping those burgers intact. You also want to add a source of fat to that. I have been making veg burgers, bean burgers for, I don't know, since 2008. And it's been kind of this like personal journey for me, trying to get it right, really trying to get it right. And I think that I think I've nearly nailed it. Mess up every once in a while, but I think that I'm nearly there. And I found that my burgers were a little dry, a little crumbly most times, and I wasn't digging that, right? I mean, condiments can only cover so much. So I realized that it probably didn't have enough fat, and I couldn't figure out what source of fat I wanted to put in there. I didn't want to put too much fat in there. I didn't want, whatever, doesn't matter. So I tried with all kinds of different things, grinding nuts up, making cashew cream, putting it in there, trying all kinds of different things. Not oil, but nearly everything else. And then I thought, well, shoot, let's just try an avocado. I was at the end of my rope. I thought, I don't know how to do this. Maybe it's just the big food companies that can do it. Well, that's what I did. I added an avocado, and that really made all the difference in the world. So we're going to add an avocado to this, a half of an avocado tonight, because I'm doing about half the recipe. And that adds a good source of a little bit of protein, and then also a good source of fiber as well. So now we can get back to the story. We have our beans. That's one of the binders. As I said, so eggs are a big binder, right? Big eggs are a binder in baking and cooking and all kinds of things. Now, we're not going to be using eggs tonight. What I'm going to be using instead is hulled or ground flaxseed. You can get it just about anywhere. This is from Trader Joe's. This is their ground flaxseed. You can buy a whole flaxseed and grind it yourself, totally fine. But you want to make sure that however you eat flaxseed, whether it be in this burger or in baked goods on top of oatmeal, doesn't matter how you're eating it, you want to make sure that you grind it because our bodies do not have the ability to break it down. So you will not be getting the fiber and the omega-3s and all the wonderful health benefits unless you grind it. And for a culinary use, what we do here is add, you have a little bit of flaxseed here, and you add some water, or you could add vegetable broth, or you could add applesauce, any kind of mostly liquid. Mix it up, and in about a minute or so, and this might actually be a little bit too much flax, in a minute or so, it will start to become gelatinous, just like an egg. So you're getting, again, the omega-3s, pardon me, and the fiber and all the nutrients from this beautiful flax. And you're not getting the cholesterol and the saturated fat that an egg will also offer. And you will not taste it, promise. You'll not be like, oh, these burgers, if you know, these would be great, except we have the flax in there. No, no, no. You will not even taste it. Promise. Jim, can you talk about flax a little bit?
Sure. So, you know, when we, you know, again, one of the advantages of a whole food plant predominant diet is the anti-inflammatory compound. And it's especially important for people that have, you know, things like degenerative arthritis or some chronic inflammatory conditions. And you know, inflammation in the human body comes from a couple different places. One of them is the overconsumption of omega-6 fatty acids and the underconsumption of omega-3. So omega-6 fatty acids create compounds that are inflammatory, and omega-3s create compounds like that are anti-inflammatory. Now, we need inflammation because we need to fight infections and heal wounds. But we have a preference actually for inflammation, but it's felt the optimum dietary ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is probably the 2 to 3 to 1 range. Standard Western diet, 50 to 1, something like that. And even a diet that people may presume is healthy, you know, low-fat dairy, lean meat, you know, and things like olive oil can be 20 to 1. So where do the omega-6s come from? They primarily come from meat and dairy because of how we raise cows and pigs and chickens today, what we feed them. But also you find them in edible oils. So corn oil is the worst, 83 to 1 omega-6, omega-3 ratio. And that they often mix that in with cattle feed to fatten them up faster. And even olive oil is 13 to 2. So still higher than that kind of 2, 3 to 1. Omega-3s come from things like flaxseed, hemp seed, chia seed, you know, walnuts and things like that. And so again, one of the advantages of moving toward a plant predominant diet, and again, think about this burger here. When you're getting, say, your protein in a package that include from a package that is made up of a real hamburger, you know, what else are you getting? Well, you're getting saturated fat. You know, which is inflammatory. What are you not getting? You're not getting fiber. You're not getting vitamins and nutrients. When we make this black bean burger and add the omega-3s with the flax, we're converting something like a hamburger that's detrimental to your health to something that's has a pretty profound positive impact on your health. And we'll talk a little bit more later about some of the other ways that black beans can help control inflammation. But omega-3s are very important. And you know, again, hemp seed, flaxseed. People talk about fish oil. I've gotten away from fish oil because of some concerns about sustainability, and a lot of it's contaminated with microplastics and forever chemicals. But you can get an algae-based omega-3 supplement if you're really trying to control inflammation. I'll sometimes recommend that for patients. But flaxseed's great. I use it a lot. I put it in oatmeal, you know, burgers. I use it as a binder if I'm making these kind of burgers. So
Cool. Okay, we have all of the players set out. Again, the burgers, or I'm sorry, the beans. Great. Now look at this. This is a nice thick binder. We have a nice gelatinous binder here. I'm going to put that into our mixture. Our caramelized onions. Now here's the thing. I like the caramelized onions in here, or just the grilled onions, whatever you want to say. I really like them in here. I like seeing them in here. It's nice to pick out the ingredients in your burgers and your food, right? You can see everything. You don't have to do that. You can just add garlic powder. That's totally fine. Now we're going to punch it up a little bit.
I think you meant onion powder. I think you meant there.
Onion powder, I'm sorry, onion powder, thanks. We're going to punch it up a little bit, and I'm going to add in some tomato paste.
You know, that's a great point, Caryn, you said about recognize your ingredients. I have back to kind of what Caryn was saying earlier, the difference between a plant-based diet and a vegan diet. You know, there are a lot of really unhealthy foods that are vegan, and Impossible Burgers might be one example. And so if you look at the ingredients, so what I tell patients is if you can look at a packaged good and readily recognize where all the ingredients came from, imagine them on a table, go for it. If you can't, put it back. So Impossible Burger, what you're going to see is a pile of brown powder, which is a genetically modified pea protein, a bowl of clear liquid, which is coconut oil. There might be some herbs and spices you might recognize, but for the most part, you have no idea where that stuff came from. This burger, you know exactly where everything Caryn's putting in that bowl, you know where that came from, right? You know where that tomato paste came from, the tomatoes. You know where those onions came from. You know what those beans are. You know where these oats are. So that's a simple trick you can do as you're trying to transition to a healthier foods and try to, you know, because as Caryn said, just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy, because there are a lot of ultra processed vegan foods, which may be better for a cow and may a little bit better if you compare to hamburger, but are not health foods. So that's a great point, Caryn, about being able to recognize the ingredients with what you're cooking.
Yeah, yay, clear liquids, yummy. in those burgers, in those Impossible Burgers, right? Okay, now spices. This is something else. I'm pretty heavy with my spices because oats, we'll get there next. Oats don't have a whole lot of flavor, right? Black beans, I don't think they have a whole lot of flavor. The flax definitely doesn't have hardly any flavor. So where are you going to find flavor? It's going to be in those spices and in our tomato paste. And that is really where I like to be heavy-handed. Now, here come the oats. These are whole rolled oats, old-fashioned oats. That is another binder. And then I'm going to throw in some salt because I didn't do that. And this is our avocado. Now, why is this called a black bean steak burger? Is this not? Here we go. It's called a black bean steak burger simply because I added steak seasoning, and that is it. It is not, you know, some kind of gourmet burger. It's whatever seasoning you want to put in there. You can just make it a barbecue burger if you have a really great barbecue seasoning. If you want to make the seasoning that's in your recipes, go for it. That's my steak seasoning that I like to make, just because a lot of seasonings have a lot of, you know, fillers and, you know, stuff that we don't need in our bodies. So I would encourage you to either make your own, or if you have a favorite seasoning, throw it in there. And it's all about, the burger is only going to be well seasoned if you season it. So there's no, you know, magic to it. You control all the ingredients.
The other great thing about this is this is really a recipe for an endless variety of burgers, because once you get the beans and the binder down, right, then you can adjust whatever spices. So say you want to make a curried chickpea burger. Well, you just switch out chickpeas, right? And then you add curry powder or whatever. Say you want to make a Tuscan kale white bean burger, you know, white beans, chop up some kale, put some garlic and oregano and whatever in there. So really this becomes a formula. If you think of this as a formula for burger, you can make an infinite variety of burgers just using the same formula of beans and binders. So Caryn, question about the different kinds of oats to look for to buy, and you know, why did you choose the one you're choosing there, and can you get that? Is that easy to find?
Yeah, so oats, you can find oats anywhere. Just make sure that you're looking for either old-fashioned oats or whole rolled oats. And I like to use those just because they're more intact, they're more nutritious. You can, if you can only find like the 5-minute or quick oats, that's fine. That's fine. I would not use a steel cut oat. That
Right.
won't soak anything up. And those really do need to be cooked longer. And then I, wouldn't buy like the little packets that have like the cinnamon or anything in them.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so I would just say a regular unflavored, either whole rolled, say that 5 times, or the quick oats is totally fine. Yeah, but they make great binders. They just soak up all the rest of that liquid in there just to keep the burgers together.
Right. And the only difference is steel cut oats are the full oat oats, which have just been chopped. So it's pretty much a whole oats grain, if you will. And then the rolled oats, it's a little bit more processed, but not a lot. They just take the steel cut oats and put them through a rolling mill kind of thing and flatten them out. And so they're not highly processed. Again, the steel cut oats won't soak up moisture and stuff like this will.
All right, burger time, baby. Let's make some burgers. We've got everything in here. And sometimes I will use my food processor. Sometimes I'll just use my hands. And I just thought tonight, just to really kind of show how this is all going to look, I like to use, we're going to use our hands. Get everything really well incorporated. And it's, oh my gosh, it smells so good. And here's the thing, when I'm teaching classes, like, especially in-person classes or hands-on classes, I should say, I tell people, listen, this is when you taste things. I want you to taste as you go along, because you can, because there's no raw eggs, no raw meat, nothing like that, nothing to get you sick. But this is when, if you need a little bit more salt, maybe you want some more pepper, maybe you want a little bit more garlic, it doesn't matter. This is when you can add those things or cover up if you have too much of one thing. So get in there, and really the recipes that you guys have tonight, they're just, if you like it, great. But these suit my palate. I want the recipes to suit your palate. So make them to your palate. And when you get in here, start, get those beans, mash those up with your hands, not all of them, because again, just as I was saying, I like to really see what's in my burgers. I want to be able to pick out the ingredients. All right, so once you get everything pretty well incorporated and mixed, take like a small baseball, large golf ball size, and squeeze it. And if it starts to hold the shape of your hand, great, that's exactly what you want. Now, to me, this is a little loose, and this is why. So at this point, if you don't have time to put this into the fridge, this is a little loose. What I would do is probably add some more oats at this point. And if it were crumbly, I would just add a little bit more water. And if you can let it sit for at least 5 minutes, good, just so that, we can really get those binders working. Now, here's the thing. I made some earlier today. So I have another batch that is really, let me get my hands going here, that is really ready to go in the fridge. So let me grab that for you. And here we go. Oh yeah. And this is nice and tough. And if you have, if you can see, I might have been able to see, I put the mixture like up on the walls of the bowl, really to get as much of the mixture chilled as fast as I could. This went in about an hour and a half ago. Now this, you will feel that it becomes a lot more dense. The mixture becomes a lot more dense, and it really, really is, let's see if I can, holding the shape. Like that is really, really dense. That is what you want. So what I'm going to do is put that off to the side, grab my baking sheet, and put a few burger patties on a baking sheet. And I'm going to show you 2 ways that I like to cook these babies up. Again, large, probably baseball size, actually, maybe. And my burgers are usually about 2.5 inches in diameter, about 3/4 of an inch or so in thickness. A little divot there in the middle. Okay. And if you are making these, if you're batching these, you can, I would suggest that you patty everything up, all of the burgers up, uncooked. And cook, tonight or whenever, however many you're going to make. Then put some patties in the refrigerator for later on in the week. And then when you think you're like, oh gosh, you get to a point where you're like, I can't have another bean burger this week. That's okay. Put them in the freezer. Put them in between wax paper sheets and then in a freezer container or freezer bag, and mark your bag so that you know when it went in there. I've never had one go bad. I've actually found them in the back of my freezer before, probably several months, maybe a year, who knows? Because I'm not always so good about marking my bags. And they were fine. But let's just be conservative and say 3 months. Okay.
So Caryn, maybe we could talk, while you're finishing that, maybe I could just talk real quick about the protein issue, because this is
Yes.
this is good. So, one of the things people always worry about when they go on a transition to a plant predominant diet is where do you get your protein? And, we're kind of protein obsessed in society today, but the thing is, this is a unfortunate byproduct of how we think about food today, and is that we don't talk about food. We talk about what food's made out of. We practice what I call nutritional reductionism. We hear about carbs and fat and protein. And 30 years ago, we worshiped carbs and demonized fat. That was the era of Snackwell's cookie. It was fat-free, so it must be free food. And that was actually around the time the obesity epidemic started here, because we started over-consuming these ultra-processed, foods, although they didn't have any fat. Today, we're worshiping protein and demonizing fat. What we should really be thinking about is not the protein, it's the package that the protein comes in, right? So I kind of alluded to this earlier. If you're getting your protein in a package of, say, a hamburger, well, first of all, where did the protein come from? Well, it came from the grass that the cow ate, because plants have protein. And the cow has already used all the good stuff, the fiber and the phytonutrients and antioxidants, to run its own machinery, and it concentrates what's left into protein and fat. Now, 10,000 years ago, there was probably an advantage to having the cow do that, the animal do that for us, because we were trying to get big and strong and get away from leopard and find a mate and pass on our DNA before we died of some infectious disease when we were 30. So we never had to worry about, if we overconsume, these animal foods, am I going to get cancer, diabetes, or a heart attack, because we were already dead. And we've unmasked all these chronic conditions as we extend human life expectancy, all of which are clearly associated with the overconsumption of processed foods and these animal foods. And again, what do you get back from that, the hamburger, besides protein and fat? We already talked about that, right? You're just getting protein and fat, right? There's nothing else that's going to improve your health. What about protein from this black bean burger? So this black bean burger has almost as much protein as a hamburger, a little bit less, but pretty close. It's got all the essential amino acids you need, although despite what you may read. It's got the fiber, it's got the omega-3s that we already talked about. The other thing people don't realize, the other source of inflammation that can affect our joints and our health in general is what's called oxidative stress. And too much oxidative stress, we have to burn oxygen to create energy for our muscles to contract, and too much oxidative stress creates chronic inflammation. Our bodies have a very limited ability to mitigate oxidative stress, and the only way we can augment that is through dietary antioxidants. And in general, the more color or the darker a food is, the more antioxidants it has. So that's why we always talk about eating the rainbow. But what many people don't realize is that dark beans, like these black beans or red beans, have more antioxidant capacity than things like blueberries and raspberries and strawberries. It's because of the pigments in the skin of the bean. So if you cut a black bean in half, it's kind of a creamy white color in the middle, right? So it's these pigments in the skin that provide the antioxidants. So again, when you when you eat a black bean burger versus a hamburger, one is potentially detrimental to your health. And this is, health, this is promoting your health. And who, again, because food can be medicine really. It's, we just have lost sight of that. So.
Yes, and I love that information about the beans because we always hear about the dark berries, dark greens. You don't think about, oh, beans are highly anti-inflammatory and highly antioxidant, right? It's great. Okay, so.
Oh, Caryn, a quick question: Do you freeze those burgers cooked or uncooked?
Uncooked, yes. So freeze them uncooked, and then what I like to do is a slow defrost. So what that means is bring them out of the freezer and put them in your refrigerator for about 24 hours, and then go back to the recipe and cook just as the recipe says. Okay, so we're heating up our pan again. We have two ways that these, and they're called grillable black bean steak burgers because they really do stand up on the grill. I've done it on live TV. Oh, I was sweating bullets that one, but it worked. And I've done them here. So they really do stand up on the grill, which is so delicious. Okay, two other ways I like to cook these burgers. Jim, can you please give me a 25-minute timer because I'm going to put these burgers in the oven, 375. Says 45 minutes. I don't think it's going to take that long just because we don't have a whole lot of things in there. But 25 minutes, please.
Yep, it's on.
Thank you. Oh, and by the way, I have this on parchment paper, no oil. I will flip them after about 25 minutes. So we have grill, bake, stovetop. Now this is, I'm going to blow your mind. Okay. Just strap in. Hot-ish pan, no oil. Okay. And the dry saute doesn't really work on this one. So what we're going to do, pull my heat down a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to take that parchment paper, a piece of parchment paper, because parchment paper does not fit well into a round pan, if you will. But if you crinkle it up and pull it apart, probably too hot now. Good thinking, Caryn. Take that pan and put it in to your pan. If it wasn't so hot, it'd be a lot easier, but think about that later. It sticks better because it's not just flipping everywhere, flying and flipping everywhere. Take your burger, put it right on there. And then get a spatula. Actually, I'll get this one. I'm going to turn my heat up pretty high. And then, let me see, I'm going to get a cover or a lid, I should say. And eventually, and really watch it. I mean, I don't have a flame going on here. I've done this over I have a stovetop behind me, gas. So if you're doing this on a gas stovetop, really watch it. Or just get a smaller piece of parchment paper. Pull it down a little bit. Now this will take, this could take, we won't do the whole thing, but this could take about 15 minutes or so. And what you're looking for is I'm pulling the heat down about medium so that I can really cook the inside of the burger first. And then after a few minutes, I'll flip it. And you'll start to see that it is getting, a little cooked. And we're just going to flip it. And then I'll at the last couple of minutes, I will do a high heat just so that I can give it that kind of that nice crispiness on the end. So I really like, I like all three ways. Obviously the oven is going to be more hands off. But if you like to experiment a little bit and do the stovetop, have at it. I think it's a lot of fun. And you can I mean, this is a great way to do stovetop cooking without any kind of oil. And if you don't want to do a dry saute, but the onions, I mean, the onions are super easy, just doing a dry saute, things that you can kind of like scoot around, but you know, the burger is fun too. So really do play around with it. I don't know if we're going to have any browning quite yet. And your paper will start to get, oh, okay, we're starting to see some color there. You can see that we are getting darker there. Yeah, it is getting nice and, you know, sometimes it doesn't take quite as long. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It depends on how thick your burger is. If you have, you know, if everything's soaked up into the oats, you know, there's just a lot of factors. We're talking about real food here. You know, it's not always uniform. This is pretty nice, yeah. All right, so I'm just going to set this aside and kind of do this at the same time that we are going to talk about some label reading, because we've got the burgers going and we've got just a little bit of time. Is there any other questions right now before we get started on the label reading? And we're not going to dive way deep into the label reading because it's like a whole course in itself. We just kind of want to touch the high points. No questions? Okay. Okie dokie. Let me get my paper here. Now, you know what? Let me start off with who's confused by labels. Yes, definitely. And by the way, they do that to confuse you. These labels, the government, whoever's in charge of that. Sometimes, you know, it's done in volume. Sometimes it's done in weight. There's math involved. Ew, you know. So, but let's just get familiar with some of the things that really matter. Put my kale salad over there. Okay, so you all have, I have a lot of notes on mine, but this one where we have 3 labels, 1 on the top, 2 on the bottom. A nutrition label. And please, please, please chime in. I'd love to have you chime in. That top one, what is going on there, right? Okay, so here's the thing. When you look at a label, that one here, even the black beans. Oh, and by the way, the black beans, protein, 7 grams per serving. And there's 3.5 servings in here. That's a lot, because the black beans aren't the only thing you're having. And also, as Jim was saying, I think Jim said, all plants have protein. So in this burger, you're going to be getting a lot more than probably just 7. Okay. When you look at a nutrition label and it says, just like you see here, 230 calories. That's for 1 serving. So if you're going to eat the whole can, if you're going to eat the whole package, you have to multiply that by how many servings are in the package or the can or whatever it is, right? Seems intuitive, but you know, not every single thing is 1 serving. Calories are per serving, not per container. We're going to aim for about 15% or less of total calories. We can talk about that. Sodium should be less than calories per serving. So that's actually a good thing to remember. You want to make sure your sodium content is less than the equal to or less than the serving. Your sodium content, the sodium number, is equal or less than the number of calories that you're taking in per serving. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first to tell you, it's really, really difficult. It really is. I mean, when I buy canned beans, I'm washing them off. It is a difficult thing to do. And that is where you're going to find most of your sodium, not the salt that you're adding to things, not the salt that you're adding to foods, because you don't need to add a whole lot really. It's going to be in those packaged goods. So be mindful of the sodium. Be mindful of the sugars.
By the way,
Yeah.
sorry, the reason that works out is we need, most of us eat around 1,800. We need about 1,800, maybe 2,000 calories a day. That's also how much sodium we need. So that's, again, that's why that formula works, because it's the number of milligrams of sodium equals the number of calories we need roughly, and so that's why you want to get the foods that have less than the calories.
Thank you. The sugars we want low, 4.3 4.3 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon. 10 grams added sugar equals 2.5 teaspoons per serving. So just, we're not going to dive too deep into this. Nartana from a wonderful friend of ours, an incredible RD, registered dietitian here in St. Louis, has a great program, and she really dives very deep into this, and she's a lot better at the label reading part than I am. I like to get in there and get down and dirty with my food. But if you want to figure out, because the percentage of fat is kind of a big deal, but that involves a little bit of math. So for fat, you'll see in the bold in the middle of that page, for fat, to figure out what percentage of calories comes from fat, say that again, to figure out what percentage of fat, sorry, to figure out what percentage of calories comes from fat, divide the calories from fat by the total calories per serving and multiply the result by 100. What? I know, but it's real easy. Tell you what. So for that top label, we have total fat at 8 grams divided by total calories 230. So that's it. 8 divided by 230 equals 0.0347. Ugh.
Yeah.
Take that by
But-
100.
yeah.
No, take that by, so it's 3.5%.
Yeah. The other thing you can do, I mean, if you don't want to carry a calculator around, for most people, what we're really looking for is 30, 35 grams of fat a day. And especially if you've got insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes or whatever. So
Yeah.
you look at that one serving is almost a third of the total fat you need for the whole day, right? So, like this one I would probably put back on the shelf myself because of the sodium's okay, but the added
Yeah.
sugars and the amount of fat. So that's another way you can look at it. And it gives you pretty much the same thing that but that's a fairly easy way to calculate it too, just to kind of eyeball it and see how many grams of fat. So
Can you say that one more time? Because we're talking a lot and I want people to I want to drive this home. This is
Yeah.
important.
So for people who are trying to lose weight or have, especially insulin resistant, I usually really try to restrict them to no more than 30, 35 grams of fat. Some people even go lower. And that's about 10% roughly of your total calories from fat based on an 1,800 calorie diet. The natural macronutrient ratios, by the way, of a plant-based diet are 75% unprocessed carbs, 15% plant-based protein, and 10% fat, most of which is unsaturated fat or the healthy fat. So, I try to get I really try personally and with my patients to try not to exceed 30 to 35 grams of total fat a day. So again, you can look at this and, 8 this is almost a third of the total fat calories just in this one serving of, I don't know what this can is from, but you have to be careful. And Nartana's on the call, by the way. She's here if she has some
Yes.
insight. Yeah.
And yes, Nartana, this includes you. If you'd like to, you certainly don't have to. I mean, she could be doing a couple other things at one time. This is
No.
after work.
I'm happy to. No. Hi,
Hi.
everyone. So yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I just like to show people what all of that means and how to get to it. Yeah, I am not, in the grocery store calculating how many fat calories are, in those grams of fat. That's just not something I'm going to do. So I agree, between like the 30 to 35 grams of fat per day is what, we should aim for. But yeah, the nutrition label is not meant to be, or it's not designed in a very intuitive way. And so, there's a lot on there and they change it all the time too. And so it's a
Right.
lot to keep up with, but you guys did a great job of explaining it.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Not as good as you. So we're ushering we're ushering everybody to Nartana for most of this stuff.
Yeah,
Well-
so Caryn, this is Heidi Prather. So any of the people that are in the program right now through HSS, if you don't already know Nartana, she runs our weight loss program within the program, and she does have a whole section on this because it's a lot to take in at once. So again, if that's something you're interested in, just give a shout out to Mark, and he will put you on the list. And Nartana's with us in the evenings and has a daytime. So if you haven't been able to partake of that, please sign up.
Thanks, Heidi. Just a couple of other little things about the nutrition labels that Nartana has so graciously offered to us to kind of go over tonight. Just some little things like, you know, when you look at ingredient labels, if it has a whole host, you know, of ingredients, a paragraph of ingredients of words that are like 26 letters long, things you can't spell or say, probably your body doesn't need it. You know, like it's just not a thing. And you'll see in your packet, which is the healthier option. Well, it turns out that A is the rolled oats, and that is the healthier option. And you may, even after just kind of doing those like simple math things we were talking about, and the fat and the calories and whatever. But look at, so A is rolled oats and B is honey bunches of oats. And even though the rolled oats have, like, you know, 20 more calories per serving, it's really just one ingredient, whole rolled oats. The honey bunches of oats has, you know, I think I can hardly read it because it's so small. I should have printed it the other way, so it's my fault. But it has added oils. It has, I think, I can't really see, either 2 or 3 different types of sweeteners in there, sugars, whatever you want to say. You know, corn is the first ingredient. And by the way, the ingredients are in descending order. So your first ingredient is going to be the most in that package. So it's mostly corn. Number 2, whole oat wheat is number 2. Number 3 is sugar. There's a lot of sugar in this, okay? So really look at your ingredients. If you don't want to do the math, or if you can't remember the whole sodium thing, then, you know, that's okay. You can't remember all the things all the time. Nobody can. But if you look at your ingredients and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much sugar in that, or there's the sugar 3 different times in there. Yes, there's syrup and sugar and fructose and all these other things that end in ose. That's sugar. So do, you know, pay attention. We don't want to confuse you. That's not what this is about. There is a lot of information. Again, Nartana is the pro, but seeing a whole lot of ingredients, probably not. Same with the Impossible Burger that Jim was talking about. All those ingredients that you can't even. Who knows what that is?
Michael Pollan, the food writer, he has a great book called In Defense of Food, and one of his rules of healthy eating is if you look at it, if food has a label on it, and it has more than 5 ingredients you can't pronounce, or ingredients you don't know what they are, you need to put it back. And so, you know, looking at this, it's got, you know, artificial flavorings and malt extract and BHT. I don't know what any of that stuff is. So again, this would, and it's got more than 5 ingredients. So this would not be on my consumption list here. You know, as Caryn said, look at the oats. There's 1 ingredient, rolled oats, right? So that's pretty good. And so those are the kind of things you're looking for.
Yeah, you don't understand it. You're the doctor.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I'm not, no, because I'm not a food chemist with these Frankenstein foods that we eat.
Right, the Frankenfoods. Yeah. Okay, so guess what? I have flattened out this burger a little bit more, and if that doesn't look done, and it totally smells done, and it's been what, like 7 or 8 minutes, if that, and it is nice and dark, and I don't know if you can't really hear that, but it's crispy on the outside, and it looks like a burger, right? Yummy. Okay, so I'm gonna take this with me and have it in a little while for dinner. Hope you guys don't mind. I'm gonna get a plate and just transfer this, put it off to the side, and then we are gonna get on to the kale. All right. Turn that guy off. And how far are we into our timer, Jim?
6 minutes left.
Oh, okay. All righty. So are you guys ready for me to rack your kale? Yeah. So good. It's so good. You're gonna be like, where have you been all my life? I know. Right here, baby, right here. All right. Delicious kale. And our other ingredients. Oh, okie dokie. Let me get everything set up here. All right, first things first. We want to strip some kale. What? Yep, we're going to strip some kale. Hopefully, again, when I do this in front of people, it never happens. I promise it's a thing though. You want to take your kale, and this is just the regular, most popular curly kale. And you're going to take it in one hand, the stalk in one hand, and then you're going to take your thumb and your index finger and gently squeeze the base of that kale leaf. Ah, yay! Take that stalk off, pitch it, compost it, whatever. Put that off to the side. We'll do one more. Oh, yeah. Saved it all for you guys. There we go. Okay. So now we have unruly kale because it's curly kale and it's doesn't do, what it's supposed to do, but that's okay. What I like to do when I cut kale is I like to stack it. So you get, 2, 3, 4 leaves and then roll it. Grab your knife. Remember, this is how we hold it. And then real thin slivers.
So, the kale stems, do have some health benefits. And sometimes what I'll do is just chop them real thin, just chop them and throw them in with the onions and saute them.
Yeah.
Probably don't want to make, these vegetable rinds, you can make stock, but sometimes the kale stems can make it a little bit bitter. You probably don't want to use kale stems in a veggie stock, unlike
Not a cruciferous vegetable in that veggie.
Oh, right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we have our beautiful, sort of fluffy kale. And I like to cut it small like that because just so it doesn't get like all over your face, you're on a hot date. It's not a sexy look, right? So I don't remember hot dates anymore. Been married 20 years. Come on. All right. We've got fluffy kale. Now let's make a dressing. And we're going to make an oil-free dressing. I love tahini. Tahini is, it's ground up sesame seeds, and sesame seeds hold a good amount of calcium too. So just a little FYI. But the reason I like to use tahini is because I liken it to boring peanut butter. It's kind of runny. It's not full of flavor, but it makes a great base for so many dressings and sauces and all kinds of things. And when you buy tahini, this one's from Trader Joe's. Just about everybody's going to sell it. Just make sure that you get a tahini that has only sesame seeds. Sometimes it'll have a little bit of salt in it. This one doesn't. But just like if you're buying a natural peanut butter or almond butter or whatever, just make sure that whatever's in that jar is just the nut or the seed that you're wanting to buy. It does not need to have added oils, sugars, whatever. I stopped looking at ingredients of tahini because every time I bought it from a different maker or company or whatever, it was just sesame seeds. So I thought, yeah, well, one time I bought a new one. I was at a store that I usually don't go to. I bought it and it had a whole laundry list of ingredients. And I thought, well, that's crazy. So I didn't use it. But just really do make sure, again, label reading, at least look at your ingredients. Okay, so I'm going to use a NutriBullet here. And because I'm going to turn this upside down for it to blend, I'm going to add a little bit of water first. I'm not going to add the tahini right away because it'll just stick to the top. So that's the only reason. A little bit of water. Okay, so let's add our ingredients. And this actually looks pretty good. I've been stirring this. Oh, and with your tahini or your peanut butter or your nut butters or whatever, and if they separate, get in there and stir it up. You want to stir all that in there. I know that, we don't like oils or whatever, but if you take that oil out of your nut butters, you're going to have concrete, and nobody likes concrete. Nobody likes eating concrete. So I would suggest you always just whip it back in there. Now, if you don't have a citrus press and you just have a fork, then get in there with your lemon. If the seeds fall in, no big deal. They will be pulverized. They're soft enough for these blades. Plus, it gives you a little bit more fiber. And the citrus, the acid, you can use any acid you want. I choose to use lemons just because I like lemons. That will cut through the fat on your palate, creating a little bit brighter experience. Isn't eating an experience? Okay, now I'm going to add some maple syrup because we want to add some sweetener to round out these flavors. You can use honey if you like honey. If you want to use a date paste, you could use date paste. Really, whatever you're comfortable using, use. I have a little bit of garlic here. This can be garlic powder if you want. Just have some whole cloves here that'll be ground up. Let's make sure I have everything. Tahini, maple, garlic. We're going to add a little bit of salt.
Turn the
Again, that
timer's
salt.
off. The timer just went off.
Oh,
for-
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get that. Let's see how these look. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Look at these babies. They look. Oh my goodness. All right. Jim, please, let's just do 10 minutes on these.
Okay.
Thanks. Those look so good. All right. I think we're probably good with that water. And we will blend this up. And give it a taste. Make sure you like it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. That's a good one. Oh. It always tastes a little bit different every time. Just how I just when I know I think it's going to take what it's going to taste like. Yeah, it's good stuff. All right. Have our dressing. It has turned out it's oh, I'll show you. You can see. Kind of a thick-ish. And it's pretty runny, but it's definitely not a thick dressing. And that is totally up to you. You can make it as thick or as thin as you want. And by the way, if it's not so thick, it makes a really good sandwich spread or a dip. Okay, glove up. I like to glove up. Now, if you go to one of the gazillion awesome restaurants in New York, oh my gosh, it's so fun. And you order the kale salad and it comes looking like this. They've just drizzled it on there. Oh my gosh. I mean, I like to say, I'd like to say that you should send it back, but that makes me nervous, right? Like you don't really know what they're going to do. Or you could glove or you could glove up at your table and get in there yourself. This is what you want to do. When people talk about massaging kale, they are not talking about this. That's not a massage. If you go and you get a massage, you don't want somebody going like this. No. If anything, that's going to tickle. What you want to do is get in there. Get in there. And I mean like get on your tippy toes. Really work that dressing into each and every teeny tiny leaf. Oh my gosh, this is just, now this really smells good. What's happening here is you are breaking down all those cell walls. You are tearing the leaves apart. You're creating more real estate for that dressing to soak in. You're forcing the dressing into every single crevice. You are essentially tenderizing your kale so that it is very soft and very palatable. Doesn't take long, and you'll see that, remember, well, let's give it another couple seconds here. Oh yeah, this is so delicious. This is the way you eat kale. It is a Swedish massage. Think about that. Now, remember when it was big and fluffy? And now it is just full of dressing, and it is so incredibly soft. And you won't be able to wait to get into it. And of course, add anything else you want to, but this, I just wanted you to see just the plain kale and dressing.
So a couple questions, one of which I can answer. One of those is what kind of gloves you're wearing? Are they food grade gloves?
Yeah. The let me see if I have the box. Jim, do you have those also?
With the gloves? I don't have
Yeah.
any
Oh,
here.
here they are. Here they are. Yeah, they're just NITRILE. How do you say that word? I can never say it. Latex free for dental, beauty, food, childcare, medical. Yeah, just Amazon. Black gloves.
So the other question, Caryn, was, is garlic okay if you have lupus and are looking to follow an anti-inflammatory diet? Most definitely. So in fact, garlic is highly, all foods in the allium family are highly anti-inflammatory. They've got compounds like quercetin and allium, which are, again, help fight inflammation. What's interesting about that is to maximize the amount of anti-inflammatories, it's best to chop or mince the onions or the garlic and let it sit there for a few minutes and let those anti-inflammatory compounds develop. And the reason is that most of these anti-inflammatory polyphenols and flavonoids and things like that are these plants' natural defense mechanisms to protect themselves from getting, if they were to get injured, when you damage a plant, they can get infected by bacteria and viruses. And so they've evolved these compounds to help protect themselves. And then when we consume them, we get that extra added benefit. And so so you have to damage, if you will, the plant to trigger these compounds to develop. So when we cut an onion up, we damage the cell wall, and that causes the plant to start to produce these compounds. But what's interesting about onions is, if you think about an onion, which part of the onion is most likely to get damaged? Well, it's the outer leaves, right? So when you peel an onion, you just want to take the thin paper skin off and preserve as much of the outer leaves as you can, because that's where the biggest bang for your buck is as far as the anti-inflammatories go. And there is a kind of a bell curve. Caryn, can you speak to that, like about how long it takes?
Yeah. The bell curve, so you want to cut up your onion or your alliums, and then the bell curve lasts about 15 minutes. So when you're about to start your recipe, you want to cut up your onions or your garlic first and wait about 15 minutes for those anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory properties to really produce. And then they kind of wane after about 15-ish minutes. Now that's okay. I mean, you're still going to get fiber, you're still going to get other nutrients. You're just not going to, we just like to offer information that's going to give you the biggest nutrition bang for your buck. So if you can catch it in about 15 minutes after you have cut all those alliums up, then you'll get those other properties as well.
that's why I'm using like the jarred minced garlic. It doesn't have quite as much flavor, number one, but doesn't have quite as many health benefits because that the allium's kind of dissipated by then. And so when we talk about allium vest, we're talking about leeks and onion, all the different kinds of onions and garlic and shallots and green onions. That's the class of plants we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a beautiful kale salad here. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I could eat this whole thing in one sitting because it's so easy. There's not a whole lot of chewing. It's delicious. The dressing, I mean, you can use any dressing on it you want. But just make sure you really, really get it. I mean, I'm on my tippy toes getting in there really, really, really. And when it starts to become soft, you know that you're nearly there. And then I have just dressed my burger with a little bit of avocado that is also in the burger, and just broke a ketchup bottle. So I won't be adding ketchup to that. But maybe I have an onion around here. So that right there is our black bean burger and our kale salad. Is there
pull it back a little,
I'm sorry.
bit.
I'm sorry.
You're out of there. We go.
Yep,
There we go. And you can make that salad into a dinner. If I was going to have that for dinner, I'd add some chickpeas and some chopped up, bell peppers and some walnuts and some blueberries and some hemp seed.
Also, Jim, what you could do is take this burger and crumble it into the salad.
That's right. Or you could put some of that on top of the burger as a condiment. So
yeah. So there was somebody, Anne, I believe, was cooking. How are you doing?
She had to
Anne?
leave. She had to sign off. And she's
okay.
hoping to catch the rest of it on the recording. So
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. One thing I would, if it's okay with you guys, again, please, we're still open for questions or talking points or whatever. This is your time. So, let's chat. Couple things that I would like to mention is that, if you ever have a specific question about nearly any food or nutrient or health concern, you might want to check out thedocandchef.com. This is a company or a little business, side business that's turned into something much bigger that Jim and I started, and it's all free. It's on YouTube. Our website is thedocandchef.com, where we have all of our episodes. We have taken many topics and created
including
single
allium.
episodes.
We have a show
What?
on alliums, don't we?
Yes, we have a show on alliums. So every show that we do is anywhere between 6 and 15 minutes long, not long, and they're all topic driven. So the first show we did was, where do you get protein on a plant-based diet? And Jim talks about the science behind it. So he talks about what protein is, where you can get it, animal, plants, what the heck it is, how much you need, how much you don't need, whatever. And very easy to understand science. And then he tosses it over to me, where I have made a easy, delicious, plant or protein heavy, fully plant-based, I think it's a one-pot meal. So we've really married nutrition science to your plate of food, because there's so many very intelligent researchers, healthcare providers out there who talk about science and food, which is very interesting to me because I'm a geek about it, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. I get that. And then when somebody's talking all this science, you think, well, that's great. That's really interesting. I want to do that. But how do I go grocery shopping for that? What does that look like for my family and I? How do I achieve that at dinner? So that's what I do, is I show you what that science looks like on your plate. And we've done episodes on nightshades and going gluten-free. Do you need to do that? We just did one on gut health. We actually just filmed our 50th episode. So we have several out now, and I encourage you to take a look, and of course, like and subscribe and do all that stuff. But I think that'll answer a lot of questions. And then also, yes.
Just so the timer went off. Sorry, I just want to let you know.
Okay. Thank you. And also, with each episode, if you are looking to dive deeper into that topic, Jim has written a scientific blog post that goes with every single episode. So you can really take a deep dive and take that information to your own provider if you want. So that's, we want to make sure that everything is backed by science, real science, not bro science. And, just so that you can get the answers that you need.
Speaking
And-
of answers, speaking of that, there's a bunch of questions. If when you're ready, I'll start asking them.
These are perfect, beautiful burgers. And I hope you guys make them. Okay, so let's talk questions.
All right. So I just posted the website into the chat. Someone asked about that. So what about items such as tofu and seitan? That's probably a long discussion, but there, go ahead.
That is, we can actually do, so we're going to be doing these classes, these specialized classes for you guys, the HSS community, quarterly. And soy, we can definitely do a soy class. I think absolutely we should do a soy class. But real quick, Jim, if you want to, oh, you know what? We have an episode on soy.
Yeah, we do. So
So-
yeah, when you talk about processed, I mean, these are processed, but they're minimally processed. So, all seitan is made from vital wheat gluten. So you can buy it, but you can separate the gluten from the rest of it just by manipulating flour. So that's, it's not really, it's processed, but not ultra processed. Same with tofu. Tofu is just curdled soy milk, and you scrape the curds off and press it into a block. So I think both of those are good. I use them both in cooking. Again, there's a long discussion about soy and how you use it from a culinary standpoint, which I'm not sure we have time to get into, but soy is good and seitan is fine.
So I would like to say, if I can just interject right here, is
Yeah.
I'd also like, you'll see, I think probably the last page in your packet of information, there's information about a membership at the Center for Plant-Based Living. And one of the perks you get, or part of the membership, I should say, is you get access to all of the past classes and all of the correlating recipes. So all the past classes is video, so they're all on YouTube. And then all of the correlating recipes that you can download and print out or put on your device, whatever. And we like to call it a streaming membership because you can stream any of the classes anytime you want. But then you can also we do a monthly cooking class, just like this, an interactive cooking class. And then we also have a support call once a month. We actually had it today. It's the third Thursday of every month. So, and Jim comes in on the support calls once a quarter, and you can ask the doc anything you want. So you get access to Jim 4 times a year. But a new perk, actually, something that we just did, is having Jim on every single cooking class as well. So you get a lot of Jim.
Whether you like it or not.
But yeah, we'll see. And the reason I thought about this was because of the soy question. And I think there's 2 full, 1 soy and 1 tofu class, just dedicated tofu class in the library. And, we go through the different types of tofu and the different types of soy and why it's good and bad or whatever. So there's there's low calorie classes, there's gluten-free classes, there's holiday classes, there's barbecue all kinds of classes in there. So if you are curious, it's $30 a month. We like to say it's $1 a day. It's month to month, so there's no contracts, anything like that. And you guys, the HSS community has their own link. So we've actually created a membership plan just for you guys. If you're interested. So, you don't have to be a member for a year. If it doesn't fit into your schedule, try it for a month, see how you like it. You're going to love it. But it's a really fun time. And I just love the support that we're able to give each other, because I learned too. So it's a good time. Okay. Next question.
So there's, one was, I presume this is talking about the burger. Can you top it with salsa or something else? And the other is, could you substitute spinach for the cake?
Yes, top that burger with anything you want. Salsa's great. Yeah, I mean, I love my condiments. So after this call, I will probably, since I just trash my ketchup, I probably will do salsa. So I just opened up a jar last night. Can you substitute? So here's the thing with spinach. It's so full of water and it's not nearly as fibrous as kale. So you can take this kale salad and it'll put it in a sealed container. It'll last in the refrigerator. It'll hold up in the refrigerator for like 3, maybe even 5 days. Okay. If you were to do that with spinach, oh my gosh, it would just get kind of runny and gross, right? Like after a day, spinach in the refrigerator is kind of gross, like it just like most other very delicate lettuces. So, and no, you do not want to massage spinach because it'll just fall apart. So you can do this kind of massaging with kale, Swiss chard or any of the chards, because those are really rough too. And Jim, what's the other one I'm thinking of? Maybe you can do that with cabbage too, actually, because that really stands up, but not with spinach. Wouldn't recommend it.
You could use the dress. You could make a salad and use the dressing, but you wouldn't want to massage it.
Right.
It would disappear, I think.
Yeah.
So, next question, and this is the last one in the queue right now, is how do you clean plants to prevent E. coli?
I honestly, I just rinse it off and I just rinse the kale off under cold water, or you can use a salad spinner. I like the salad spinner too, but I don't do the baking soda. I don't do the sprays that you can buy in the produce section. I never have. Some people swear by them. I've never had a problem, knock wood, with any of this. But I just rinse it off in the sink with water.
So it's interesting, the E. coli comes because many large commercial farm operations are using brown water that's contaminated with cow feces. That's actually that's why you get E. coli on plants. It doesn't come from the plants. It comes from the cow poop that's being sprayed in the water and sprayed on. So another strategy I use locally, I'm a fan of local farmers markets. And so, you go meet your farmer, find out how they're raising their food, on and on. And that's another way you can kind of be sure that your food's not being overly contaminated with be it E. coli or pesticides or herbicides or whatever. Just seek out find a local farmer's market that you trust and get to know the farmers. And that's another way to be sure that you're not going to run into this problem. Because I guarantee you, most farmers at the farmers market aren't spraying water contaminated with cow poop on their plants. Tasty, yeah. Not to end on that, but
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Closing thought. I was just gonna say, yeah, Heidi. If you have any-
So Caryn and then Jim, thanks so much for this. And this is our inaugural kickoff. Hopefully we can have this as an enduring video that people can come back to. And we'll be reaching out to those of you who joined tonight to get some feedback. And hopefully we can put a few doc and chefs on our website at HSS so that you can figure out how to link to that and how that'd be helpful. And we can't thank you enough for joining us. This is a big missing piece of our program. We tell you the why, but you got to know the how. And Caryn and Jim do both very well, and we're just really grateful you've joined us.
Awesome.
Grateful to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to sign off tonight. Jim and I are actually, you can contact us on the website. There's a contact button, goes straight to my email. So we're happy to help you out in any way that we can after we sign off tonight. So thanks very, very much for your time. We appreciate it. And we will hopefully see you again.
And Caryn, you're going to post a link or email to the link so people can watch this. You'll get that out, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.